You pick up a fork without thinking, and you've done it thousands of times. But there was a moment in history when that exact gesture, lifting a fork to your mouth, was called an offense against God. Not fringe hysteria, a genuine condemnation. So what did people think a fork actually was? For most of European history, eating with your hands wasn't rude, it was right. Fingers were the instruments God gave you. Clean, honest, direct. A knife helped with cutting, a spoon handled liquids, and your hands did everything else. That wasn't a gap in civilization. That was civilization. Picture the scene in Venice, around 1004 AD. A Byzantine princess named Maria Argyropoulina arrives to marry into Venetian nobility. And at the wedding feast, she does something no one at that table has ever seen. She pulls out a small golden fork and uses it to bring food to her lips. 2 tines, delicate, imported from the East. The room notices. So why did that cause a scandal? It wasn't just about manners. An influential church figure named Saint Peter Damian looked at that fork and saw something theologically dangerous. His argument wasn't that forks were dirty or impractical. It was almost the opposite. They were too artificial. God, in His wisdom, had already provided the perfect instruments for eating. They were attached to your hands. To invent a substitute, a golden, decorative one, no less, was to signal that God's design wasn't good enough for you. That kind of arrogance, in a worldview where the natural order was sacred and luxury was morally suspect, wasn't a quirk. It was a moral failing. And then Maria died young, not long after her arrival in Venice, likely from plague. To some, the timing wasn't coincidence. It was confirmation. That's what made this more than gossip. The condemnation fit a completely coherent logic. Luxury separates you from nature. Nature is God's design. Therefore, luxury is a quiet rebellion against God. The fork wasn't just a utensil, it was a statement. This wasn't fringe hysteria. It was the inevitable conclusion of a coherent worldview. But if that logic was so airtight, how did the fork end up winning? If Maria had shown up at your table with that golden fork in 1004, would you have seen it as elegant or offensive? Drop your answer in the comments below. Because the real twist is what happened when the fork slowly crept from royal tables downward. And why that changed everything. Italian nobility, particularly in Florence and Venice during the Renaissance, kept using forks. Not loudly, not as a protest, just privately, at their own tables, because a fork signaled something the church's objection had accidentally made more powerful. Exclusivity. The very fact that forks were controversial made them a status marker. If common people ate with their hands, and the church said that was the godly way, then eating with a fork announced that you operated by different rules, that you were, in a word, refined. When Catherine de' Medici married into French royalty in the 16th century and brought Italian dining customs with her, the fork didn't arrive as a theological compromise. It arrived as a luxury import, a cultural flex. The argument for the fork had quietly flipped the original condemnation entirely on its head. Fingers, once the mark of honest, God-given simplicity, gradually became associated with animals, with savagery, with the uncivilized. The fork, the very object condemned for separating humans from nature, became the proof that you were civilized. The logic that killed it became the logic that saved it. Early forks were genuinely awkward. 2 tines meant food slipped constantly. The move to 3 tines, then 4, made the fork actually functional, which means the engineering caught up to the social ambition, and suddenly there was no practical argument left against it either. So the next time you pick up a fork without thinking, you're holding the end result of centuries of theological argument, status signaling, and a quiet engineering fix. An object that had to win on 3 different fronts just to earn its place at your table. Subscribe if you want more like this. And watch the next one, it's already on screen.